Welcome to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue heard exclusively on MalcolmPresents.com. And of course, I'm Malcolm Presents. Malcolm Berman.
And I'm Deborah Manning.
And
how are you?
Fine. How are you today?
Good. I'm coming to you. I'm a native Californian, as probably everybody's already figured out, being that tall blondie girl.
The blonde hair. The blonde hair gives you away.
Came back. Oh, I came back to South Carolina 5 years ago, and it's been interesting. This native California, they'll never get the Californian out of me, but it's been quite an experience being here in South Carolina. So, hey, I've got to mention your background, Coney Island, huh?
Coney Island, and that's actually in my background. I lived about a mile and a half west of this place. We're on the boardwalk, and this is the parachute jump, which is still there, but it's non-operational. What they did is, I think they had I forget how many units they had all around there. They had about 6 parachutes, and they would be lifted up slowly by strings, or I don't know what by wires, and then it would hit the top, and then the wires would go, and the parachutes would open, and you would drift down.
Did you ever go on it?
No. Now, I'm not sure. My excuse was that it was too expensive. I had no money as a kid. I forgot how much it was, but it was too expensive. It's like the Cyclone. I've only been on that 2 or 3 times because it was so much money.
Well, if you're interested, on Fox Nation, Stuart Varney, who is formerly a Brit but now a U.S. citizen, is doing a great series, and it's called American Built. And he has some fascinating facts about Coney Island, about how it was put together, and the entrepreneurship that it took to be able to put together something like Coney Island. It's absolutely fascinating. I don't even want to attempt to give you some of the history on it, but it's fascinating. It really is.
Well, Coney Island at one time, at the turn of the century, which for people like me, we're turning about the 1900s, was a very exclusive area. It wasn't like what it is now, with an amusement park. It was an amusement park, but they had nightclubs there, and entertainment, and it was where the rich and the famous went. Of course, it's close,
and also what was interesting about it was that they were really pushing the edge of engineering at the time, especially with many of the I'm here in my office. Okay. Especially with many of the roller coasters and what have you.
Yeah.
So,
the Cyclone was the grandfather of them all. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you go up the hill, and I've only been in 2 or 3 times. Again, my excuse always was that it was too expensive, but the real thing is I might have been afraid.
Yeah, well, I'm not really wild about roller coasters myself. I'm a former news reporter out of LA, and I got to tell you, I unfortunately was assigned enough of those stories about derailings of roller coasters and carny shows and what have you. So I kind of at that point said, okay, I don't think I need to go on the roller coaster. So.
Well, I think I'm not afraid, but I don't like anything that I can't control the speed.
Yeah. Well, that's
even in slides.
Yeah, that's understandable.
I can't control the speed.
Yeah. So we had, right after we talked that night, which was a week ago Friday, that's when the horrific line of storms came across the Midwest. And it was very odd because I'm a weather junkie, and coming across the country 6 years ago, thank heavens I had the weather apps that I did, because that whole area in the Midwest, the tornadoes are not to be trifled with. They're very serious. And
I saw the carnage in Kentucky.
Horrible, and it was terrible because you could see the Weather Channel people reacting as they watched the storm come in, and they were actually I was watching the radar, and they were pointing this out, and it was on its way to Mayfield. That whole situation took place in less than 3 minutes, and I just, heavens to Betsy. But the reason that I bring that up is that the storm then proceeded across the country. And normally a storm like that, at least in the 6 years that we've been here, will normally start to break up, and we're concerned, but we're not that concerned. It didn't. So there was this line of storms that came through, and once again, I had my weather apps ready to go. I went out to the front yard and we were talking to the next door neighbors, and I have an app called Dark Sky. If you don't have it, it's an outstanding app. And it was telling me you've got 10 minutes to go before this line of storms hits and what have you. Fortunately, there's a lot of warning here in South Carolina via all kinds of different medias and what have you. So we were prepared to go, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess what I wasn't prepared for was when our neighbor decided to come over and he was giving us a newspaper or something like that. And I looked down, I said, listen, Don, there's something in the Southwest. It's not only black, but it's turning green. You got 1 minute to get across the street and make sure that you're safe. And he was kind of poo-pooing. I said, no, don't poo-poo this. Get across the street.
Get
He
your butt
literally,
moving.
yeah, he literally got across the street, was walking up the ramp when the thing hit. And it went deathly quiet, which is not a good sign before a storm. And the power of the wind was just, it puts you in awe. We certainly didn't have the types of winds that these poor people had in the Midwest. But once again, I was just astounded that this line of storms came across the country and continued its march. And we probably had 40 to 50 mile an hour winds that hit us just boom, all of a sudden. And it stayed for, I would say, a good 5 to 10 minutes all the way on through. Fortunately, we lost no trees. We had done some major pruning.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And fortunately, we didn't lose any trees, although some of our neighbors did lose some trees. Those things can be pretty deadly once they start to come on down.
Did you get rains?
Yeah,
Was it
we
raining?
did. Yeah, we did. The rain came after the first blast of wind. But I guess what I was so astounded about was that the storm was able to come across literally 1,000 miles and still have the power that it had. So I cannot even imagine what these poor people went through in Tennessee and Alabama and Kentucky.
Well, it wasn't a tornado, was it?
Oh yeah.
Yours
Oh,
was
yeah.
a tornado, considered a tornado?
Well, ours coming through was not, it was the remnants of the
Right.
tornado, but the one that came through Kentucky,
Oh,
they say that son of a gun came through 250 miles. That's
oh, definitely.
Wow.
That was,
wowee.
and that was a
So-
major, I think, I forget when they have, they do 1 through 5, and that was like a 4 or 5er.
Something
Minimum.
like that.
And
Right.
it said it lasted, the stretch of mileage. Somehow it's like 500 miles or something.
Well, it actually went 250 miles across. That was what my understanding was. But I got to tell you, these poor people. And once again, you can donate online to the Red Cross and to a whole variety of different entities. We've started already, some of the donations ourselves, and it's certainly, those people sure need it. They sure need it.
But there's no climate change.
Well, once again, I don't think it's time to jump on the bandwagon. And I was very disappointed with our president, where we started to jump on the political bandwagon again about climate change, what have you. Let's take care of the situation in the middle of our country. These people are in terrible, terrible need. And then we can find out exactly what the facts are as to precisely how this got started, what we can do about it, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm tired. You know what? And it's very funny. We went to a couple of Christmas parties this last week, and there is a growing sentiment right now. People are, and I'm saying it in big letters, fed up. We're done. And we're done with the politics. We are done with the gaslighting. We're done with the fear mongering. And the whole group, and it's probably 50 to 100 people in each one of these parties. And to a T, there were a lot of Biden voters that were there that are all expressing to me, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? And
Well, we're
I
watching.
guess that's good, only because that now allows us to start to have some common ground. I mean, Malcolm, that's the whole reason that you and I do these Zoom calls, to be able to find some common ground here. We've got to and stop all of this grandstanding about things. It's nuts. It's
Yeah,
not.
well, I wouldn't, I agree with you partially. I'm not enthralled with what Biden
No,
is
I don't
doing.
expect you to agree with. I'm an independent, and I have a tendency of going more towards the conservative side. You're a liberal, and once again, we need the yin and the yang. We need this combination of discussions, but we don't need the villainization
Yeah, well,
of situation.
my question would be, in the past election, what was the alternative?
Well, I do wish, because I used to be a staunch Democrat, I do wish that there had been a better candidate. I think that we were sold a bill of goods with this particular candidate and with his sidekick, Ms. Harris. And that is at least the comments that I heard from these two get-togethers, and a tremendous amount of remorse. I mean, we now have approval levels of in the 30s. Both Biden and Harris apparently is still down in the 20s. And I know that when President Biden went on to what did he go on, Jimmy Kimmel or one of the late night programs, he made light of the polls. He thought it was funny. He ignores them and what have you. Well, people are not ignoring them anymore.
Well, number one is, as far as a president, you can't really live by the polls. So the party does. I mean, the Democratic Party, what they're worried about what's happening in the midterm election. But again, as you know, the things I think, politics is it's a dirty word. I think there has to be a restructuring of this whole damn government. As I say, that democracy is a grand experiment. I agree with democracy, but I don't necessarily agree with how it's being operated right now. I don't believe what's happening with the government. I don't believe in two political parties. You say there should be more than two political parties, as they do in most of the countries in Europe. There's not only two parties, there's three or four.
Well, I do believe we do need to have good, solid ideas. And we need to be able to have a blending of those good, solid ideas. I mean, it's remarkable to me right now that the mayor of San Francisco, and I believe also of Oakland, are now, they had talked about earlier the defunding of police. And now they're begging to have police come back, and they're wondering why they can't seem to get police officers. Well, once again, when you demonize people, people are people, and people need to be respected. Certainly, you and I agreed on the situation with George Floyd. Good Lord, that was murder, was torture, was horrendous. But once again, to use that as a reason, one bad cop plus his four little minions that he was training does not constitute a defund the police.
Yeah. Well, first of all, George Floyd was, it wasn't a situation that created the riots or Black Lives Matters. It was like the tip of the iceberg. There had been so many outrageous, I mean, literally outrageous things that happened to, the Black populace done by police, that this was sort of, as I say, the tip of the iceberg, this sort of, the straw that broke the camel's back. So I don't think that's a good example. As far as defunding the police, I think it was a misnomer, and we talked about that before. It wasn't defunding, it was changing the structure. It was making it more to, there shouldn't be, as both of us agree, policemen shouldn't be people answering the phones at the precinct. They should have civilians doing that. The police are supposed to be out on the street or fighting crime, and that's all no. And sometimes, and in a way, they bend over backwards right now as far as the judicial system, as far as letting them out when they shouldn't. But I also, you have to look at the whole picture. You have to look at how many people are waiting in jail because they can't make the bail money and they're innocent and they're waiting months and months for a trial.
Well, at this point, nobody really is waiting in jail. I do know the people who are still waiting in jail, ironically enough, and this is probably a touch point for the two of us, the people arrested for January 6th, the Capitol situation. And they're still waiting in jail, and that's been since January the 6th.
Right, I agree. But again, that was just, they shouldn't have been arrested. They were just visiting the Capitol.
I'm gonna have some coffee.
That wasn't an insurrection. But they had another trial on today with the woman who, the cop that I think she was on the force 26 years,
Yeah.
who shot the guy with, and she thought it was her taser.
Yeah.
Actually, if I was listening to the beginning of the her testimony, she sounds like a great cop. I don't understand how she can pick up her taser and think it was a revolver, and got her revolver instead.
I don't know. I did not hear the testimony, so I really don't have any opinion about it. I do know human beings are human beings, but you scratch your head and go after training and training and training. I used to be a private investigator and also did some private security, and you have to go through some very rigorous training. So I don't have any opinion on this, except that something doesn't make any sense.
No, because she had I was listening to her. She had a very impressive background. But I granted.
Omicron.
And I'm catching it from you.
Well, we're more than 6 feet away from each other.
Yeah, that's getting speaking about that, that's getting a little more frightening now. I'm starting to read how the Omicron is really becoming epidemic again, a pandemic. It's
well, I think part of it, I mean, you got to ask where the heck it is coming from, and part of where it's coming from, unfortunately, is it's coming from the people that are coming across the border. They're not being vaccinated, and they're being shuttled across the United States. That's one place it's coming from, because you have no way of knowing what these people have and what they don't have. Fortunately, it looks like it's going to be a little less virulent, they call it, a little less dangerous than either Delta or the original COVID-19. And for heaven's sakes, I certainly hope that. I know here in South Carolina, they're still not, they're saying absolutely no mask mandates and what have you. They're allowing some of the school districts to ask for masks on kids, but pretty much that has been defeated. Once again, I keep my mask with me anyway, just for the heck of it. It's not a political statement for me, although all my political friends are very upset that I would be wearing a mask. It's my own personal decision. I mean, just like the vaccinations and the boosters, like for you and me, it was my decision to be able to do that. But one interesting fact I heard, which was fascinating, they had an interview today with the governor of Nebraska. Did you realize that Nebraska has the best numbers in regards to controlling COVID and Delta and Omicron? The best numbers in terms of the fewer number of deaths, the fewer number of hospitalizations, all of that. And you know why?
Have you ever been to Nebraska?
I have, as a matter of fact.
You can drive weeks and not see another person.
Well, interestingly enough, they never closed Nebraska. They never had mask mandates. They never closed it. So their economy is fully fine, including all the small businesses, including the big box stores. They have the best employment rate of any state in the country. And I was not aware of that. We even closed down here in South Carolina for, I believe it was 3 to 6 months, and it devastated many of the small businesses, obviously, here. But I find that very interesting. I do wish, once again, that we would start to really truly rely on the data. This COVID plus all the variants is a different kind of animal, and it needs to be dealt with, not with politics, but with true science.
Yeah,
and I got to tell you, I'm done with Fauci. I liked him before. He seemed pretty interesting, along with Dr. Birx, but I'm done.
But that's known as vaccines. It's been proven with numbers that the people who have COVID now are the unvaccinated. Most of the people in the hospitals are the unvaccinated.
But that's the problem. There's a lot of breakthrough that's going on.
Right,
but the other thing let me explain. The other thing that the Nebraska governor said was he also said he believed in the vaccine, as I do, because that's why I got the vaccine, as did my husband. But he said that they went on an education campaign, not a mandate, an education campaign. This is what you and I have been talking about. You talk about why you should be getting the vaccination. You make common sense. You make a good argument as to why it should be, why you should be getting a vaccination, not this mandate situation. And that's the reason that apparently tremendous number of Nebraskans all decided to go ahead, easily got the vaccine plus the booster. So, human nature being human nature, for crying out loud. It's like treating your kid, saying, you're not going to do this. Well, the kid automatically does it. I mean, any parent knows that, for heaven's sakes. You don't do it that way.
Yeah, but we have a society that's controlled by different laws and things. You have to have a license to drive. You have to have, there are different restrictions that you have. I think in order to go into public places when it's a pandemic and they're not sure. Yes, I think I don't know what you have wrong with Fauci, but the question is, we're learning. It's not something that they know. It's something new. I mean, every time, when he changes what the rules are or what you have to do, it's because new information came. It's not that the information that he had was wrong. There's new information. It's growing. It's like you as a person. When you think, when you're doing something and then you find out there's another way of doing it, you're going to change. You're going to, as you get older, if you don't grow as you get older and learn more things, you're dead. I mean,
but I do have to say that, for example, some of the alternative ways of treating people, we're simply not, we're poo-pooed, we're put as conspiracy. I mean, unfortunately, candidate Biden and candidate Harris both said, once again, bringing politics into it, that they were not going to take the vaccine because it was derived by Trump. Now,
I've never heard that.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
Because it was derived by Trump.
Yes, you did.
No, they said that they would not take the vaccine if it wasn't approved.
No,
it had to be approved by. It had to be approved by the FDA.
I hate to tell you this. I'm an ex-news reporter. I get my facts straight, and the facts are that both of them said, and especially Harris said, because Trump backed it, I'm not taking the vaccination. That's where we got started on this whole situation where it now becomes politicized.
Show me a tape on that. Oh, by the way, I don't know. I saw like a headline on Facebook about Hannity taking a vacation.
Yeah, what about it?
He's taking a vacation, really? Unscheduled vacation. I don't know whether it's true or not. I'm just bringing it up.
Haven't seen it.
False news.
I haven't seen it. Where did you see it?
Facebook, but it was sort of like the breaking news on Facebook, but who knows? I haven't really investigated it. But
I hope it's nothing serious. I hope it's
I think it has to do more with politics than any illnesses. But with that January 6th type of thing, what he's saying now, what he's saying he didn't say, that they released the data that he was saying, hey, with Mr. President, you got to do something.
I must say that the texts that were released by that were put together by Hannity and by Laura Ingraham and by Bret Baier, or maybe it was it Bret Baier? No,
I'm not sure. It was Hannity and Ingraham and
it was Brian Kilmeade. All of that they were using as proof positive that they were saying something different on the air. Well, if you go back and look at the tapes, they were not saying that. They were condemning the violence that was going on. Once again, I don't understand how you can have a Capitol building and not have bulletproof glass. I don't understand that. But I mean, how easy is it to break normal glass? I don't know. And I do find it interesting. We still don't have an answer as to why there were not more police and why there was not the National Guard. I mean,
the National Guard we know because nobody called him.
That's incorrect. Apparently, the chief of the Capitol Police had requested a half a dozen times, and each time he was turned down. My question is, once
Right.
again,
Well,
as a news reporter, who turned him down? I want to know who turned him down.
he was turned down because I think it had, I forget who has to authorize. I mean, ultimately the president, but
Pelosi, Nancy
no.
Pelosi, the Speaker
No,
of the
and
House.
Nancy Pelosi had absolutely no authority to turn him down.
Yes, she's in charge of the security of
As
the
a
House.
security, but not the National Guard.
Well, she's in charge of the security, and apparently, and I want to know specifically who turned down, because if you have that many people, Capitol Police can't handle that, regardless of whether, of what happened. In a normal peaceful, they should have had some additional security folks.
Well, this is why we're having the House investigation, to find out what's happening. Because you had all the things about, because the Republicans didn't want to be part of it.
No, they were thrown off. They were
No, the only ones that were thrown off were the ones that were totally anti, well, we don't need it. I'm forgetting the names again, but the ones
you gotta balance it. You can't have it one way, because once again, the American people are watching this, and people, even the Biden voters that I talked to, once again at the Christmas party, I asked them what they thought, and they said, you know what? It seemed a little squirrely to me that they only had Democrats and basically Republicans who professed a hatred of Trump. It seemed a little strange. I mean, you be fair, for crying out loud. What do you have to be concerned about?
But because they can totally disrupt any sort of meeting. I mean, these guys. I'm forgetting who it is again. Hell, my memory is going. But the names that they had should have been thrown off the panel, and they should have had somebody else that was more moderate.
Well, they got Liz Cheney, who hates Trump and has a vendetta against Trump, and the other guy who also hates Trump. I mean, it's a farce. They need to look into what the devil happened. And, unfortunately, though, it appears as though there were some plants there from the FBI and the Department of Justice. And there could be, and once again, I'm just a news reporter, been doing this for a lot of time. I mean, they could have been provocateurs. And
that's also one of the big lies. Like all these, it's a rigged election, which he even said, Trump said even before the election, if I lose, it's rigged.
Well, let's stay with the issue. The issue is how this thing got out of hand. It got out of hand because they didn't have enough security people. That's number one. Number two, there appears to be provocateurs that were in the face of perhaps being FBI people or what have you, whatever the case may be. Number three, why in the hell did they not have decent windows, have bulletproof windows in the Capitol? How tough is that? They have bulletproof windows in the beast for the president.
Or are they going to do it now? That's the question.
Well, they should. I mean, absolutely, they should. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's going to be too. It's going to be too expensive. The taxpayers can't pay for it.
Oh. Well, they raised the debt ceiling, so we're now what? We're now north of, is it 28 or 29 trillion?
But what difference does it make? I remember when going back a few years ago when they lowered the corporate taxes, and one of the parties said, "Oh, we're going to go into a tax deficit," and the other party says, "Who cares? We're going to make it with the trickle down economy," which has never worked. And but now all of a sudden, when it goes to giving the money to the poor and helping out the middle class and the poor, all of a sudden the Republicans are saying, "Yeah, but we can't afford it. We have to, our debt ceiling is so." By the way,
I must say, I don't need, as being under the poverty level, I don't need to have a handout against the government. What I'm looking to be able to do is to make sure that the little income that I have is not overly taxed. And it is now being overly taxed vis-a-vis the inflation situation. It's gotten out of hand. And now when you have gasoline prices that are 50% higher, meat prices 25% higher, all of these things add to a situation where the American public is becoming very angry, very, very angry. And that's not good. That doesn't come up, we don't come up with solutions on something like this.
Yeah, well, the
Unfortunately,
American,
every single thing that has happened, it just, I don't know how this, Biden has so much experience. Why is he not using it?
yeah,
Why is he
the whole
using
thing with Biden, which I get disappointed at, he's not a leader.
I mean, that's his job.
He's negotiating, but he's not taking over as a leader. He's a negotiator and bringing people together and trying to be too nice. He has to have more of a hard edge to him, whether you like it or not. Because people who don't like him aren't going to like him no matter what he does.
But it's the same situation with Trump. I mean, Trump was lionized, was demonized because he had mean tweets and all of that. But even you and I have come to an agreement on a number of his policies that actually were working. So once again,
Trump was demonized because he's an outright liar. And what he said and what he's doing is, I mean, it was sort of, anyway. Do you realize a half hour is up?
There's no way there's a half hour is up.
Ding, 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 it was up. We're talking next Friday, right? Which is
which is Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Are you all done doing
Christmas
shopping
Eve
and
day.
what have you?
No, we have our Christmas tree up.
Very nice.
Well, you're on my Facebook, right? You should see it on
I'll take
story.
a look.
Yeah.
Once again, we could not put up a Christmas tree because we do have cats, and I got to post this one. The first year that we put a Christmas tree up, and then we had our little girl Gracie, and Gracie managed to find her way into the Christmas tree. And unfortunately, I did hear it, but unfortunately, she could not get out of the Christmas tree.
Did you call the fire department?
Well, gotta tell you, it's a hilarious video. I'll post it on Facebook. So
another thing that you're talking about inflation, the tree that I could get a 7 to 8 foot noble fir, not a Douglas fir, because
Okay.
you know the Douglas fir sheds too much, the needles.
Okay.
So last year I think we paid like $90.
Okay.
This year was 160. But it's up, it's beautiful, and Anna loves it. I mean, to me, I never had a Christmas tree as a kid. Why? Because I'm Jewish.
There you go. And Anna is purebred Christmas, isn't she?
Oh yeah, well now I'm purebred Christmas, but I celebrate it as a holiday. To me, Christmas is an American holiday. If you want,
it's a wonderful holiday.
If you want to be religious about it, fine. If you're truly religious and you believe in Jesus, it's fine. But then do what Jesus says, which I agree with. And we can go into a whole nother hour of one day we'll have to do that.
It would be fun.
We'll go over the Bible and we'll go over, what Jesus said, and is his sentiment being fulfilled by the religious right.
Well, it's funny because my late husband, Tom, was a preacher's kid, and he introduced me to the Bible and to the wise words of the Bible. And it's fascinating to see how that entire generation and generations after that have managed to cope and persevere through very, very tough times like we're having now.
Right. So, well, I believe in the Bible. I don't necessarily believe in religion or organized religion.
No, the Bible is the basis. So that's why I read the basis.
Right, but there's so many people read the same thing and they come to different conclusions. I mean, where you have all the different sects of Christianity or Catholicism or the Russian Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox, Eastern Greek, or there's so many people and they're reading the same book.
Yep.
Anyway, my dear, Will, are you ready for Christmas?
Yes, actually, we are ready for Christmas. It's just a lovely time of the year. It truly is. Okay, and I wish the best to you and your family.
Yeah. Well, we'll have the show next week, and let's talk about Christmas and how you celebrated Christmas as a kid.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, right, have a great week.
You too.
Send my love to Fish.
I will. My love to Anna.
Bye.
Bye-bye.